Welcome to this first of a monthly webinar series to expose the harmful elements of social emotional learning, known as SEL. Marsha Metzger, president of Parents on the Level, will lead us and guide us in these sessions and share information about her book and useful tools and website for parents. These sessions are being recorded and will be available to watch and share. I'm Diane Stover, and I'm here to help moderate. And about halfway through the hour, I'll read your questions from the Q&A icon you can use at the bottom of your screen, and then again towards the end of the webinar. Today, Marsha will cover social emotional learning second step curriculum. At the end of the webinar, there will be a survey you can use to give feedback. Thank you. Marsha, go ahead.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to have each one of you on the webinar with us. I'm going to take just one moment here and set up my share screen because that is how you're going to get to see everything we're doing right now. So we'll be sharing a couple right now. All right. Okay. Wait a minute. Just a second. Now we got it. All right. And it's wanting to give me a different screen than I'm sharing. So just a moment, just one moment. I'll get right there with you. You got to love technology.
Absolutely.
And okay, I have three of them to share. I'll just share all three at the same time. And I think I've got it now. Great. Okay. Thanks a lot for holding there for me. All right. So again, my name is Marsha Metzger, and I was just flabbergasted several years ago during the pandemic when I began looking into school systems in rural Georgia. My experience started with the public schools when I taught sex education, abstinence sex education in Pennsylvania for a few years, starting in 2017. So I was in Mifflin and Juniata counties in the public schools teaching sex education. And when we relocated to Georgia, because we had to just return home because of aging parents, and I sought a position doing the same thing with a crisis pregnancy center here in South Georgia, I could not get into the first school in South Georgia and was wondering why. And I had to start doing some open record work to find out. So I filed open record requests and found out too that the particular schools that were in the area were using social and emotional learning to teach sex education. And I'm like, I've never heard of social and emotional learning before. I had no idea what it was. So it wasn't like I went looking for this. It kind of found me because my job depended on me being able to get into the schools. And long story short, that didn't happen. It never did happen in South Georgia because of this issue. So I started doing this in like 12 school districts. And I found a second step curriculum in several of the schools in South Georgia. And I did a full-on investigation of it. And I have friends across the country that also have done it. And I will be sharing a lot of the work that's been done by several amazing people that work really hard to look through this information and to provide this for school boards. I have school board members across the country ask me for information about these companies. I also provide it for parents. I do seminars, webinars, whatever I can to get the word out about what's taking place. We decided to start with Second Steps because it is so popular, and it was one of the initial companies used in some of the beginnings of social and emotional learning in the public schools. So anyway, we thought what we would do in order to help people understand what's in each of these companies that we're finding information for is to have this monthly webinar. So we will use this form. It's not the prettiest form in the world, but it is powerful. It has information for you to use with links embedded in it that will be posted at parentsonthelevel.com by this evening. So hopefully I'll be able to get it on there pretty quickly afterward. But this particular form, we will use this, and next month we will have a very enlightening form that actually will focus on the company that helped originate a lot of the material across the nation by the name of Castle. So we will be doing a particular form on the company that actually is used to score all social and emotional learning companies. So it'll be very interesting for you, and I'll touch on that throughout this particular discussion today as well. So let's get started and let's jump into this form because there's a lot to cover, and let's just go for that. So anyways, SEL framework integration. So that sounds so official or something, but SEL, it is a framework. And remember, SEL stands for social and emotional learning. The framework integration, what that particularly means is that there's a host of non-academic lessons that are presented by teachers daily in the school system that have to do with morality or sex education, child abuse, bullying, all kind of different things that happen. And normally it's showcased like during a health class or even during like homeroom. So the framework, though, connects all of these items together, and they want to fully integrate all of these kinds of lessons throughout the day, throughout every subject, throughout every digital platform that there is in that child's Chromebook or whatever kind of computer they're using. So we have designed the tool, and we call it the Digital Publisher Evaluation Tool. So let's look at the goal. What is the goal of SEL? It is to transform the entire school through the lens of equity for equal outcomes. Okay, so we'll stop that right there because you will understand that as I develop the information as we go through. But understand the goal of this tool that we're using here is to expose how SEL delivers diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. Many of you have heard Ron DeSantis talk about it in Florida. Now that I'm in Florida, I'm like, wow, he's really hitting it hard on getting this out of the schools, especially the higher education and the colleges. He and Christopher Rufo are doing some work together on that, and you ought to follow it. But inclusion lessons, what we have to understand is inclusion lessons are the type of lessons that are setting the children up to accept these new-founded definitions regarding sexual orientation, gender identity, ideologies, and the like. So race and critical theories are all throughout this information too. And so what happens with these is that this absolutely is the attempt to overwrite the rights of parents to raise their children fundamentally in the way they see fit, as afforded by constitutional law. And anyway, the beliefs and values are being replaced with these SEL programs, unknown to the parents many times, and it's leaving the children confused, possibly even in a double bind, which is abusive to their own mind because they don't know who to follow. So this is very serious, and this is one of the reasons why we're working so hard. This is a ton of work to be able to bring this to you. Understand that also when you have these beliefs and values presented to your children, they are required to affirm these things in the classroom. And these affirmations are required, measured, and scored. Some people liken those kind of scores to what is known as even social scoring for the future. SEL is a deceptive framework delivered as a therapeutic mental health education that is frequently managed by American School Counselor Association, or ASCA, mental health counselors through individual interventions. So gone are the days of when we thought that they are guidance counselors. Now we have full-on mental health counselors and social workers throughout the school systems, and they are hiring more and more as they move forward with social and emotional learning. Castle is the company that brings this scoring for each of these programs. Castle stands for the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. They define SEL as social emotional learning is an integral part of education and human development. SEL is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals, to feel and show empathy for others, to establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. This was presented by Karen Nemi earlier on. She was the former president of CASEL. So this looks kind of benign at first, but then you think to yourself, based on what value code and whose values? You'll see that as we move forward. So this is the Committee for Children and Second Step. Second Step is owned by the Committee for Children, so they are the parent company. So we're classifying this particular information. Does the curriculum have an ISBN or version number? These digital programs most likely will not, because the lessons are unsecured. They're dynamic video many times, meaning that they can be changed at any time. They're completely open to that. The CASEL, the company that starts that I just explained to you, the hosting company that defines SEL, they particularize this as a select company. They also define the approach for Second Step as a freestanding performance. So what does that mean? So what we have to do is look on this particular link. We're just going to click on that and it'll take us into the CASEL system. So this is CASEL, and this is where you view all of the programs that they have graded, and they will tell you what these particular companies are, how they work. Are they fully committed, or are they just barely starting with their program? Because again, they want to transform the entire culture of the school with this information. So let's look, and you pretty much just have to page through it and go to Second Step. And now Second Step, they have an elementary, they have what they call early learning curriculum, and it's promising. They have the rating of promising. The Second Step middle school has the select rating. And then Second Step elementary has select rating. So what exactly does this mean, and what does freestanding lessons mean? Well, freestanding means that this is not integrated or embedded like in an English language arts program, or it's not in every single subject of the day as of yet. It's done pretty much separately, most likely delivered by a counselor or delivered by a trained teacher that has specifically been targeted to teach the information. There's all kind of different program approaches here. And, you know, when you think about how they're organizing it in the schools, it's primarily just about how absolutely committed are they to this. And they test what the students are learning to give them that rating as well. So they have their evidence-based reporting. Some people think it's a little bit sketchy, that's probably done more of in a friendly way with a friendly company. So these are things that you'd have to look and measure for yourself, but we could get really bogged down in that, but that is what I'm looking at here. And you can read more about that as you go through. It's all there on the CASEL website. Now let's move on down and let's talk about the company itself. This is, on the left side here, we're going to be defining the harmful elements of the particular companies. And then we're going to look at the supporting information that talks about each of these elements that we have here. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you right up front, I may not have all of the elements defined yet. This is an ongoing thing. We're learning more and more, and this is a huge project. So these particular evaluation tools, when they're on the website, you need to look at ours, because if theirs is going to be dynamic and fluid, so is ours. When we find things, if you find something more to add to it, by all means, reach out to me. And you'll have all my contact information at the end of the session. So this is Andrea Levenhill, and she absolutely is confessing right up front how important DEI is, that it is essential to realizing their vision of a more just and peaceful world, one where every child can thrive. By sharing our journey, we hope to inspire you to join us. So it all sounds flowery, it sounds hopeful, it sounds great. But this is a smokescreen that many teachers have even fallen for, many administrators have fallen for. And they do see that there are mental health needs and social needs of our students. And the thing about it is, as we want to meet these social needs and all of these things, we can't meet every single need for every single student, every single family when it comes to information that relates outside of the classroom, or no learning will even take place. We're expanding this into a mental health apparatus that never was intended for schools. So let's continue. DEI, this is one of the interesting things about the DEI is that when you take the framework of DEI and you take it through the Castle original definition on their older definitions of what was on their website before a lot of this got traction after the pandemic or during the pandemic, you can see where all of these different connections with the different offerings, the non-academic classes and everything, presented an entrance into the schools to bring in any kind of critical theory that they wanted to use. Critical theory is not just race. Any kind of a division that can come into the school, any kind of a session that can come into the school, like it could be sex education, it could be sexual orientation, it could be gender identity, because see, sex education, there's two different ways to present it. You can present it through abstinence, or you can present it through more of a comprehensive sex education way that you can find in videos on the Planned Parenthood site that are very open to just sexual promiscuity, and children couldn't even consent to. So there's different ways to divide and conquer. And that is what critical theory is. It is to bring in, through this knowledge of diversity, equity, inclusion, it is to bring in confusion to the school and yet call it something that's so light. It's more of a gaslighting way of saying, this is a just and peaceful thing that we're bringing. We're bringing the solutions because our children are so mentally impaired right now. They're suicidal. And literally, when I went to the school in Tifton, Georgia, the first one that connected with me about SEL, they said, we're just trying to keep students alive. And I've never heard on major news that thousands of kids were dying in Tift County, Georgia. I was like, wait, what? And so that's what, and the more I learn, the more I realize the diversity, equity, and inclusion to bring this information into the schools by taking inclusion and saying you have to include every single person and affirm every single thing they want. This is how this is taking place. It's a complex kind of a theory and concept to explain to you. But the thing is that I think more people are understanding that these things are being pushed on our students to force them to affirm these different things that would totally go against many religious values and parental guidelines that parents would ensue. So look through this and you can understand a little more. They completely embrace DEI, as all SEL programs do. So now let's talk about an officer. They have their first Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. Let's look at this and understand, in our schools today, we're not just going to have the Title IX officer, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, and then we have our School Resource Officer. I mean, what is taking place in our schools now? And then now we're going to have all the social workers that do the interventions and measure to see if you're affirming these things. This is a lot of what takes place within this framework. One thing I want you to also understand that I about forgot to do, when when this was originally designed with Castle and they started social and emotional learning, you have to understand that when you look at all of the non-academic offerings here, this is what the SEL pioneers came together to address, and they did this at the Metzger Institute. The Metzger Institute is a spiritual think tank that is probably more of a universal New Age flavor for religious value for you to evaluate for yourself. So look it up, the Metzger Institute. Be sure to look through the Metzger library. Understand that John Metzger was heavily involved in helping with all of that information too. We have Stephen Rockefeller and Timothy Schreiber. They are pretty well endowed with Castle, and they will take this into more of a spiritual aspect, which is not supposed to happen in schools. We have to understand that by using DEI and by using inclusion to say that these different lifestyles are good and true and they are necessary and we should affirm every single thing, that overwrites that religious value for those that follow the lessons and the teachings of holy God and holiness. Whereas sin would be defined in a Christian connotation or a Mormon or Jehovah's Witness, just myriads of different religions. Islam has their own teaching about being sexually pure. There are all kinds of people that are going to take offense to this. We live in a pluralistic society, so we have to take it into account that this is being absolutely connected through all of the original definition that was on their older website. So now when you compare the Castle website today, there's no mention of Metzger Institute. There's no mention of the fact that they came in to organize the non-academic. All of this is on this particular link here, and you can compare that with today's history, and you will understand where it's all come from, where it all comes from. So it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to look into. But the great thing about it is you will have this tool, you will have this video, and you will also have ways that you can connect with us to ask questions as well. So let's continue, because diversity, equity, inclusion is that could be a lesson all on its own. And maybe one day we will just do that particular one. So now let's move on to the fact that there's some exposing to do. And that's what we promised you on the video. So let's look at some of these links. Understand that Second Steps literally is the company that the Loudoun County, Virginia schools had been using. Loudoun County, Virginia right now has a pretty good lawsuit coming against them, because that's where the attack on the girl by the sexually confused young man, evidently wearing a skirt in the bathrooms, had attacked this girl. And this is their SEL company that they use. So does that mean that they're responsible? No, but you'll know that that is one of the components. This is a dynamic of what we're talking about. These schools are teaching this information. They are teaching gender identity. They're teaching sexual orientation if they're using this system. Many schools, when you go into them, will say, oh, we're not teaching that part. We turned that lesson off. You know, why are we supporting a company that would do this in the first place? That would be my first question. Schools mostly across the nation have local control, and these are valid questions for your elected school board officials. So this is your information to look at. So all of these different links will be helpful for you and give you information to read. Now, when you look at this lawsuit, when you connect to this lawsuit, it is amazing how the attorneys have defined all this and written it out for you. It will help you organize your thoughts as you bring information at your local level, because that is the best way that we as Americans can take our schools into a place where they're safer for students, to where they're not given these lessons, where they're being overwritten by demanding that they include every lifestyle on the spectrum. All right, so there's tons of information, though. One of the things in the words about the Committee for Children, this was in their own words. They are hitting 26.9 million children per year. So you can see they have a vast network, and their goal, I believe, by 2028 is, I think it's 100 million is their goal by 2028. So this is what you need to consider and look at. And, look at their history. I've got all kind of links for you there. The Utah Parents United report, Lisa Logan, Stacy Clayton, they did a expose on it as well. They have the lesson numbers listed. They have all kind of information for you to look at there. So you see, if you find that this information is in your school, you're just going to be able to take this link and email it to your school board member and say, look through these links. I want to know why this, and this is in our school. And you'll have the information and the proof right there. Here's the situation for me. I had to go into these schools, many of them, and sit in a room and look at this information myself for hours. So this is how valuable this tool is to you, ladies and gentlemen. You won't have to do all of that. Now, let's also look at the company officers, and some of the things that you're going to look at, where were they educated? What's on their social media? Twitter is a great place to find information. Just look through it. Look through, any news articles that are written about them. There's all kind of information that I have. Andrea Lovenhill is here on the left. Now, I want to be very fair and very, just very civil in this respect. She is in a same-sex marriage, and she oversees worldview lessons. So, who she is going to come through. That's not anything hateful for me to point out. Parents, you need to just evaluate this and see if it matches your values. This is one of the things that I do, and this is a fair assessment. So understand that, the global aspect where this is going, 26.9 million students are being impacted by the leadership of this company. So, we're seeing in the news that the LGBTQ numbers are climbing at an alarming rate, far more than anyone could even make sense of, because it's never grown like this before. So there have been some intentional plans that were pretty much initiated during the pandemic, and you can't deny it. Look back and you'll understand. Just look through news cycles and you'll understand. So look through that information. One of the things too that you really need to watch is this Pride video about their company. They shared this on their YouTube channel. This is very revealing about many of their leaders that are in the LGBTQ community. So, and you will hear them asking you to affirm them. You will hear those ideological principles coming across in a way that pretty much would be alarming to someone that feels that this overwrites their religious values. So this would be a concern for me as a parent. This would be a concern. And it's not that I dislike people. I just know what I believe, and I know it to be, what I want for my family. And when my child grows up and they have their whole mindset and they're able to make their decisions as an adult, that's when they're able to provide, to give consent. But consent is for parents to have over their children when it regards sexual orientation, gender identity, and all of those things. It is pretty much a no-brainer for most people. This has been the history of our country for years and years. So understand that this information's out there. Look through all of these links, and parents, make up your own mind. Look at it, evaluate it for yourself. So all of this is information for you to use. The history of the Committee for Children, that's what CFC is there. You need to look into that as well and see where all of their historical values are, where it came from, and assess it for yourself. Okay, now number 3, I want to cover really quick because this doesn't apply to second steps. But if there are SEL companies that are used like in reading programs or something like that, they literally have libraries connected to these SEL programs. And many of those books that are listed in some of these particular SEL programs, like I think one of them is called Reading for Relevance is one of them, they literally will have those books that have listed that we're calling banned books, even though books are not being banned, people. Books are being restricted from minors. Banned books means that they are totally destroyed and not even sold. So they're not banned, they're just restricted. And that's because of parental reasons. They want to have the consent when their child becomes aware of sexual information. So anyway, number 3.
Marsha, would you like to take a few questions?
Sure.
Okay, we have 4 questions. The first one, are there any SEL programs that are less problematic? Are there any parts of SEL that are positive?
Okay. Social and emotional learning will have some positive benefits to it. I'm not going to sit here and act like it won't. But this is what we called character education before SEL came on strongly on the scene in the schools. And, you know, when you take something and use good in order to bring about other ideological principles, it's all mixed in together. And not to mention, as you'll see as I move on, the data collection on these materials is unbelievable. So when we look at SEL and we look at the fact that it is a digital program and that it's measuring the responses of values, and these values are being presented to students that might not match the values of parents, I would say that if it's SEL, I don't think it is safe. I don't think there's any I don't think there's a need for digital measuring of students like that. This is the parent's role to make sure their child has values. And if the child is not displaying that at home, at school, then those problems need to be taken up with the parent. And I know there's a lot of parents or teachers that'll say, well, we've got so many deadbeat parents. Well, that doesn't mean you need to measure personal information. Adverse childhood experiences are going into the data cloud, and who knows where that information is going. These are very particularly personal situations that identify things about families, even to people that are unknown. And it's very dangerous. It depends on whose hands it falls in. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. While SEL can be promoted as good, and there could be some benefit that comes through some lessons, there's a lot in it that can really, really offset that. Next.
Marsha, you covered this, but it's worth repeating again. This question sounds like they're following much of the CSE model, inserting SEL as their focus while including all of the DEI, CRT, and LGBTQ plus ideologies and agendas, of course, with CSE continuing throughout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is, if you can use a social and emotional learning program to circumvent the laws that will protect your students from CSE application, it's very it can do that. Matter of fact, the particular school district that I worked with in Tift County, Georgia, before I moved here, they never had it approved for sex education. They never took it through the legal course of a health advisory committee that is formed by parents, non-teaching parents, to say how they wanted sex education taught to their district. Parents were not afforded a time for public comment. They were not, this was not approved properly. It totally circumvented Georgia law. So this, I'm finding when I talk with people, happens all over the place. So yes, your comments are well-founded, and all of this is coming through, all of it. Yeah. So good question.
All right. What else? Is there room for parents to file a lawsuit based on the fact that SEL is teaching values that contradict parents' values? A constitutional right for parents to direct the moral upbringing of our children.
Read that suit that I had, that I just went over from America First Legal? Yeah, they filed in Loudoun County, Virginia. You will see how they framed all of that. And it is a really good, it's very well written. And there are probably other cases out there besides that one. I just used that one because that was when I think between the books they were reading in the Loudoun County school board meetings, it was just covered heavily by the news. And that was one of the things that really helped Youngkin get his governorship, from my understanding. So anyway, read that lawsuit and you could, yes, they definitely you have information for a case there.
Let's take one more so you can move on, and then we'll take a few at the end of the webinar.
Okay.
How can a parent access their child's CASEL analytics?
Wow, that's a good one. Well, I would just say start with open record information. That's what I would say. And the thing is, you know, CASEL, they might analyze a company. You might just say you want all of the data your child has filled out, like you would want the second step analytics if that's the company. You might also want to say how much of my child's data has been released in a global network. So I'll cover data in just a minute too. So yeah, you can do through open record. You're supposed to be able to get that information from your school. They're supposed to provide it. If they do, and they do it with integrity, that's something we don't know. So hopefully they will. I think that it depends on the area. All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, finance information. There are so many companies connected in so many different ways. So each company is just a fresh start. And I did not want to get us bogged down in financial stuff here. But there's a couple of things that I do want to point out to you. For one thing, Bill Gates is in everything, right? Bill Gates is in everything. So I found a Bill Gates connection with them. Also, the Charity Navigator is a great place to look. Go through there and they will show you how to go into their 990 system, all of that information, and just look through it. I found all kind of information that was interesting in what these companies will confess on their responses to questions on their 990 about who they partner with, all kind of things, the tons of money they're making. You know, there are billions of dollars associated with social and emotional learning. And I believe that the return as well on investment, or they have a compounded annual gross rating of like 25%. I mean, who wouldn't want to be making 25% on their investment right now? So this is highly lucrative for investment firms, and there are many of them. So you can look into the finance information, and that can be a seminar all on its own. There is some people that, you know, we can do seminars on in the future that are really, really good at this. I pretty much stay in the curriculum area. I'm not as astute on the financials, but it's very interesting how you can find and go through that information. For those of you that are real good with numbers and finance backgrounds, give me a call. I'd love to have you help develop this part of our program. All right. So promotion of global citizenship. Y'all, this is huge. This is huge. We're America, and we're feeling like we're not America because things have just happened and have gone on for so long that we're like, you know, do we have a border? What's wrong with America First principles? You know, what's wrong with being proud of America? And why am I being demeaned by being called maybe a Christian nationalist or whatever? You know, these things, these names and these titles, these words they're calling, just ignore them and go about your business with learning what's taking place in the schools and standing in the truth, stand on the law and push back. Don't worry about what they call out, because if all they have is a name to call, just don't worry about it. Global citizenship. If you want one world government, we should just stay headed in this direction, because that is what many of these global elites want. And there are globalists that are involved with CASEL, and you'll see that on next month's phone call. But the thing is, when you go through and you look at these particular links that I have, you will understand what's taking place. It's written in all of their about sections. Like if you have a different global or a different SEL company in your school system, just go look at their about tab and you will find the words that they're talking about. So, and the words like paradigms, when you're talking about a global paradigm, it means they are wanting to totally rework, redefine even every nation and bring them all under one governance. So that is what they're looking at. It's what they want. So one of the things on their 990 I noticed was they have this global partner called Karanga or Karanga. I'm terrible at pronouncing these strange words. Karanga, whatever. They have different guiding principles. This is the 990, and you say, we are also partnering with Karanga, the Global Alliance for Social and Emotional Learning and Life Skills. This is a global thing, guys, global thing. And look down here at this particular this particular information here. It talks about multiple pathways and systems. SEL and life skills development occurs through multiple learning pathways, from formal education to non-formal settings to the workplace, through different modalities, and can reach all learners. But it can be sustained only if it's embedded in education and learning systems. There is their confession. This is embedded throughout the whole system. So, and it's delivering everything we've just talked about. So again, remember, we talked about non-academic framework lessons identified. So let's identify a few of those lessons that are actually in the curriculum. And videos are, when I can find them on YouTube, that's free use. Okay, that's free use. I tried to get this video from 2 or 3 different school systems and was denied. And I think some teachers in Griffin, Georgia put it up on a YouTube channel and we caught it there. So, you know, you just don't give up. Go out there and start digging. So this particular video about bullying, I'm going to play the video for you just so you'll get a feel for how would a child process this in their classroom. So hang on just a second.
Stop. Did
Oh,
you
my
know
goodness.
thousands of Americans are piggybacking
Don't
off
you
an
love it?
IRS?
Yeah.
People who might be different to be picked on like that. I like to see different.
Y'all forgive me.
So there's this boy that's in our class, and the girls just tease him about hanging out with the girls instead of hanging out with the boys. So they always telling him that he's gay and messing with him all the time, and that makes him very upset.
There were a couple guys who rode my bus and just spent the entire time throwing around like homophobic slurs and talking about how much they like hated and feared and felt disgusted by gay people.
When I came to school in September, there was a lot of conversations. People would ask their friends like, oh, is that a boy or a girl? Or like, what is that boy wearing? Or like, is that boy wearing a skirt? Just really ignorant things that I found to be really offensive and really hurtful. And it made learning very difficult. And it made just walking from class to class very difficult, and staying happy and keeping my grades up difficult.
People would just call me like gay and like names and stuff, and people would just like pick on me and just make like left me out of like things, you know. I was feeling really depressed.
I felt really bad for the person they were talking about, and it kind of just made me feel like, wow, these people are really mean, you know?
It just creates fear and it just makes people want to hide.
It lets people know that school is a place where there is this type of judgment and where people are going to judge you for how you express yourself and are going to talk about it and are going to perpetuate these stigmas. And I don't think that's okay at all.
So when you're thinking about, okay, how in the world is a child going to, you know, work through this particular lesson in a group setting, put in small groups in the classroom. That is how this is established. What kind of group dynamic? One of the parents in one of our school districts in Georgia came forward after the fact, after their child was taught this material. That's why we went out looking for this particular video, because one of the kids pretty much was just processing the information and just said, I just don't like being involved in all of this. And it was stressing the student out. And they were reprimanded because of their response to that. This opens up confusion, and this is what cultural Marxism does. This is what DEI does, and it's pushing a narrative. It's pushing a value on students that have been taught different values at home. Now, is it based on hatred? No. And is it a normal, isn't it a normal question to say, wait, is that a guy or girl? I mean, they're processing out loud and they're talking with someone. And now, is it mean for students to tease and harass and do it? Yes, it's mean. But I'm going to tell you something. Students have been doing that. I've worked in these schools. They do it on anything. So the thing is, when you showcase just this one issue, that you know, these issues like this in this as bullying or whatever, when you particularize this, there is a certain there is a certain oppression that comes over the school, that they can't say anything, period. And there's a self-censoring aspect that comes along with it. And it also involves the teachers, because they're afraid to stand up and say, look, by teaching students to affirm this when it clearly violates their sacred beliefs regarding sexuality, when it clearly violates their sacred beliefs regarding gender, people that do not believe that God makes mistakes, people that also it desacralizes what people believe about forcing surgery and things like this, you know, encouraging that to a minor. We have more students detransitioning now. You can find their stories all over the place now. So, you know, these kids can't consent to having sex in the first place. This is where we're at. And then when you come down and you look at the lesson sheets, you know, let me make this one point here. You know, one of the things I teach in my seminars is parents on the level, we encourage the 2+4 principle. And notice the spelling here, TO plus FOR. It's more of a grammatical 2+4. Teach your values and beliefs to your child, and represent your values and beliefs for your child by gatekeeping, filing legal notifications with your school of what your expectations are, and by staying informed. If we're not gatekeeping for our students, how are they going to manage these things on their own at the school? So this is where a lot of teachers, they're scared to touch this because they're scared of the fallout. I mean, I'll probably be attacked by some people from just exposing this, but I'm really saying this fairly. You know, I love all humanity. I do. I don't care how you come at me. I have friends that are gay. I have friends that live differently than I, and I can still accept them. But they know too, they accept me, my autonomy, and my personal beliefs. And that's called mutual respect. And that's what we have to get back to in America. Because, you know, let's talk about what is kind and unkind. It is unkind to affirm an unhealthy mindset that leads to permanent disfigurement and sexual dysfunction. It's unkind to overwrite the religious values of a family. It is unkind to undermine the rights of parents. So let's just kind of put that right there, because in order to teach inclusion, you're teaching exclusion of these things. We live in a society that's known as what's pluralistic. We have a multitude of different belief systems, and we used to have a mutual respect, and we used to not cross these lines in the schools. This is ideology, and it does not belong in the lower grades. So here are the worksheets. Put yourself in a classroom and think about how you would respond to this lesson, okay? So that's one of the main things. And I've had school after school say, oh, we've turned that one off. We're not going to use that one. We're not going to use that one when I bring it up. you know, when you get a counselor in a room one-on-one with students and that student expresses this, well, the teachers might not be giving it to them, but probably a counselor is. All right, so let's also look sexuality education. One of the things with second steps, they started out elementary, they started out middle school. We did earlier on in our expose a couple of years ago find some embedded links that taught about sex ed to middle schoolers, and that's where I got it shut down in a few schools for a couple of years. The thing is that you know, right now they're starting to develop a high school curriculum. It'll probably be game on with that. So it's something we have to keep checking, because like I said, they can update this at any time. Okay, therapy lessons. Now, there is so much therapy going on in schools, and there's so many parents that are totally not aware of it. And these are things that you need to understand and get involved with. And you can look even at the CDC, at the Whole Child, Whole School, Whole Community website there, and see how CDC is involved and how they also perpetuate, like the little middle school boy just said. I mean, what middle schoolers use the perpetuate word? But anyway, CDC perpetuates this, Planned Parenthood perpetuates this, all of these things involved with whole child curriculum. It all connects. The MTSS system, multi-tiered system of supports, this is your mental health apparatus in the schools. You will have a school psychologist, and you will also have social workers, mental health counselors. There's a myriad of mental health information coming towards your children. Interventions mean that there are one-on-one information that possibly they're responding to because of the data they're collecting in that digital system on that computer. So that's where we're going. You can look through all of these different links, and you can also look at all of these. This will talk to you about the School Counselors, American School Counselor Association. That's a huge one that you need to look at. All right, I'm trying to hurry up because I'm noticing that my time is running out. Copyright and permissions. Folks, I did an open record just a few months ago to get access to the information at the school in Tift County, Georgia. And they charged me $56 to print out. I asked for the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, the official documents. They went to this website and printed out all of this stuff and charged me $56 for it. They do not want to give you access. You have to go toe to toe, and I will go back and talk with them again about it. Copyright and permissions is the main key that they're going to try to hide behind and say that you cannot have your own account and access codes to look at this in the comfort of your own home. So parents, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take off work. You're going to have to go to the school district office and sit at a desk and take in one video at a time. Who can live at the district office and do this? Be specific in the lessons that you want to review. I would strategize with other parents, and I would also talk with your attorney general if they won't give you access, and remind them of the open record laws in your state. So that's all I can say to that. There's some information you can read. You can see where this one county suspended second step program. I've heard of many of them. Now, there is a firewall tactic I really want to touch on too, that involves using a counseling service that has grant money that comes alongside of the school, so they can kind of firewall whatever SEL program they're using in the counseling community that they're using. So it could be a totally different outside subcontractor coming towards your school. That's another way that they try to keep the SEL access from families, parents, and citizens. So we talked about critical theory elements. I think that if you just look through this yourself and read through it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. This is talking about trying to get this kid to map out his identity. There is a lot of racial information. There's a lot of links to the Southern Poverty Law Center. There's all kinds of things, Learning for Justice. Here are some of the things that have been listed regarding the different surveys that they use. Panorama connects with second steps many times, what their privacy policy is. You can go down that rabbit hole for a long, long time. Now, here is one that you're going to want to watch. Now, Andrea Lovenhill, the CEO that I talked about earlier on in the program, she literally does a podcast. Great, right? Well, you need to listen to this particular podcast and understand that this podcast, she is talking with the leader of GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Educational Network. She's talking with them, and you will find out everything about the worldview of this company just by the way that she is reading through this. Read all of the information about how these programs are brought to us, how the age-appropriate terms and lessons, introductory ideas, introducing students to different things through inclusion. Just go through it and find out if there's any sex education lessons when you do, an access request from your school. Just say, I want to look into this material. I want you to get me every one of the digital lessons that has to do with sexual education, any kind. So there you go. Now, activism is a huge thing that these companies promote as well. Read through this and look at this. Performance tasks, stand up for change. Next month, when I talk to you about the activism efforts of social and emotional learning that come from the heart of the company, Castle, you'll understand why this exists in this SEL program here. Because once you read this on your own, you're going to be like, what? Because let's teach kids how to dismantle systems, systemic things and all of that. So we're looking at, here's one of the things that was on their website, leading the SEL revolution. They want the kids to lead the SEL revolution. Here's where they're talking about mindfulness. They're talking about Buddhism. For a Christian, they might not want their kid to even hear about any of that. So look at all of that information, evaluate it for yourself, understand how this is undermining your parental rights. You can read through every bit of this information. Parents aren't mentioned in some of these forms. That it's glaringly obvious that, pursuing my interest, here are the different people that they put here, how in the world, or was that on this one up here? Anyway, there's one that's on here that just totally leaves parents out. I'm trying to rush so I can get to some of your questions. So where are we at with all of this? Where we're at is the schools, if they subscribe to full-on integration with SEL, the schools are out of their lane. They're in your lane, parents. They're in your lane. And that there's no doubt, once you see all of this, here's the links that talk about those resources we found before. They were sending kids on how to get information about sex education online. Now, a lot of kids, and I've even heard lawmakers, when we try to get laws written in our state, saying, oh, they got access to it on the internet. Some parents have filters and everything to keep these away from their kids. So read through all of this information. Look at the War on Children video put out by Family Watch International and all of that information too, because it'll help you understand where these people are coming from that are trying to absolutely inundate and inculcate these concepts on your children. Here's the other thing. There's different state alignment charts and when I'm talking about state alignments, does it align with their standards? Look into that information. And there's all kind of links here that talk about, just some of the reports that they claim of their evidence-based effectiveness, and see if you agree with it. There's so much, y'all. This stops at 19 pages. That's the end. I could have done 200. This company is huge. It has a lot of clout in the SEL world. And parents, I've shown you what's in it. I think you can tell by the way I present it to you that I find a lot of concern in it. Does that mean that I should be written off or canceled because I don't agree with what the school systems are saying and doing? No. And it doesn't mean that for you either. Stand your ground, parents, and know that your thoughts and your values matter. Don't let someone else define the values for your student. You might have the same value alignment in one thing, but not like another. That's why you need to be engaged. All right, with that, I will close and take questions because this is an open-ended thing. So go ahead.
Marsha, several questions about digital measuring, requesting analytics. Bottom line, the question is, does our school have analytics on SEL that we can request? What's your best advice on that?
Parents can request all of their stuff from, with open record. They actually don't even have to do an open record in most states. Go and find out. It's particular to each state and their laws. But I know, like in Georgia, you're supposed to be able to go right into the school and discuss this with the leadership at your administrative office. And I don't even deal with principals. I go straight to the district office. Say, I want all of the analytics on my student. I want to know what all they have sent in to this particular SEL company. You might not even know what SEL company it is. And here's the other thing. If they have this freestanding SEL, they could also have a myriad of other SEL applications throughout the school. It depends on what programs they're using in their English language arts. You have data flying out of your kid's computer left and right. It's just the truth. That is what's taking place today. Go ahead.
Marsha, my children attend a Catholic school. A third-party mental health comes in to present second step just to first grade. I have made multiple requests for the content of the 6-week course, but have not been able to obtain it. We do have a law that I cited, but I am still getting roadblocks. Do you have any suggestions?
Yes, have your attorney write them a letter. It'll be the best money you've invested. That's illegal for them to withhold that from you. What state did you say you were? Did she say?
She did not give a state.
I mean, I would just go in there and stand my ground and say, I want to see it, because here's what's taking place. I've seen the elementary books. They're teaching this underlying tone with school is your family, school is your safe place. And it's pretty much the frog in the pot slowly heating up to the boil. There's a priming that goes on. Now, if it's taught by a book, terrific. That's a good thing. Unplugged is better if they're going to teach it. But when it's plugged in and the data is being collected, that's when it's really, really, that's really bad when that's done like that.
Okay, last question. Are schools benefiting monetarily for promoting this agenda?
Yeah. Well, if you consider that, I know back through ESSER, I think, was it 20% of their funds had to be set aside for learning loss with social and emotional learning. So I am sure there's some benefits to it. And if you have not looked at the spending per year since 2020, especially 2021, tons of money came to your school district from the Biden administration. So, and there were requirements. They want this in, and they have it fortified in so many different ways. Brain Pop is another SEL program. They've converted that into SEL. There's so many. So, yeah, stay engaged is what I say, and go to your school district office and just say, I want to know every application. And also, don't just talk to these people, email them, make a public record. Make a public record. Every time you connect with your school, do it through email. And if you do have a face-to-face discussion with someone, go back to your email and thank them, and go through line by line everything you covered with them and what they said to you. That way there is a public record. This is the way we have to speak with our public schools today in order to gatekeep for our children. So next month, when we go over CASEL, I think you will find an added benefit to that, to understand what's taking place. I mean, if your school has second step, once you go through all these links on your own, if I covered this in a webinar, it would be an all-day webinar. So that's what you've got, some homework to do, even with me providing you the proof of what's taking place. And understand, it is not hateful to stand your ground for your beliefs, for your family. You need to do that, and you need to let your kids know that you have their back. And you also need to let teachers know, because many teachers are not down for this at all. And I would just try to befriend your teacher and let them know that you understand that teaching today is really hard, and that you are their safe space. And if they want to use your voice where you talk with the school board member, some of them will do it if they know you well enough. give them the opportunity to give you the information. I've had so many teachers give me information, and God help them, because they are miserable and they need us. And there's many administrators that are that way too. This doesn't apply to everyone that works in the schools. And there's school board members that call me on the side that want to know too. I mean, when they give them in the summertime, when they give them a ton of programs to go through and sign off on the same day, like an omnibus bill in the Congress, that's what they're up against. And school board members, if you're on here, I want you to know something. It is imperative that you stand your ground in those situations and refuse to sign off and say, this isn't Congress. We're not doing this like an omnibus. Let's go through it and get some help to get going through it. I'll be glad to help you. If you can get me some access codes, we will go through it. So anyway,
Marsha, you want to put your slide up on the screen so
oh,
they can
yes,
see?
yes. Right here. Folks, I've written this book. This is 3 years of my life in this book, The Parent Navigator. I did this through the pandemic. I have it right now on sale for $5 a copy, because I'm not so much about making money on it as much as I am about providing a tool for you to understand that it's far more than SEL. There are so many different things going on in the public schools today that you need to be aware of. And there's just all kind of links. It's a 200-page PDF ebook where you can just flip through it. And so anyway, you can get that at parentsonthelevel.com. and just click on the Parent Navigator, and it'll show you exactly how to purchase it. Also, this document by this evening will be live on Parents on the Level, where you can download this document and start going through the links. And hopefully Diane will have our video process soon where we can start sharing that. It will be on YouTube, and it will also be on Parents on the Level. So guys, I hope you will join us each month. Tell your friends. We can take 500 people on one of these webinars, and we just look forward to sharing with you every month and doing these questions. So save your questions month by month, earmark this. And Diane, thank you so much for hosting this and bringing this to fruition.
It's my pleasure. It's so exciting to see this being communicated and getting the word out. We are going to be meeting on a webinar every first Monday of the month, with one exception in January due to the holiday. Our next webinar will be January 15th at the same time slot, 1 o'clock. And everyone that was registered for this call and webinar today will be invited to that one. Share it with people that you know that could benefit from this information. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.